Oh, yeah. I know better. Better than to waste much of my afternoon, much of my time on Twitter, on the Twitterverse. Oh, my word. Do they not teach math in this society anymore? Is there no math? Basic math. Not talking about trigonometry. Basic math. So, engaging with college football fans this afternoon on the Voice of College Football. If you follow us on Twitter and me personally on Twitter, you will see the handle right there. You will probably be amused at times, annoyed at times, and otherwise. We do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, the best discussion, debate, and analysis. Thanks to you, thanks to me, thanks to what we do together here at the Voice of College Football. So thanks for stopping by. This is our daily show, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, the College Football Show. Is there a touch of arrogance there? I don't know. You decide. I am in the process of contemplating who my favorite team is going to be in 2025. More on that to come. I've got a few things rummaging up there between my ears. There's a lot of room up there to rummage. So I've got a few other ideas concerning the channel and concerning what we're doing here at the Voice of College Football. That would be maybe one. Who's going to be my favorite team for 2025? Who really grabs my heart? The first candidate is Coastal Carolina with their free concessions. They packed the house for the entire season last year, and they're still offering free concessions. No limit, from what I understand. From what I read, no limit. I gave up after a couple of days of scouring Amazon and elsewhere looking for Coastal Carolina gear. I couldn't find anything with the bright teal. I didn't want to wear something that was just black, maybe with a small Coastal Carolina Chanticleer up here that nobody would recognize. No, I wanted to be big and bold. Coastal Carolina. We should all be pulling for the Chanticleers this year. So I am. I love that statement. Free concessions. They're my team of the year for 2025. I need a team in the power conferences, though, because most of you will not be paying attention to Coastal Carolina. And truth be known, I won't either. So much to talk about here. Steve Deace standing by, Michigan Podcast. Can't wait to slice it up with Steve. We chop it up on his Michigan Podcast on Tuesdays throughout the offseason and week to week during the regular season. So I so much appreciate that spot on his show. He could give that to a zillion other people and has in the past, but for him to invite me almost every week to the Michigan Podcast, I do not take that for granted and appreciate Steve Deace inviting me on. Also, I was on the Juck on Buck show. I believe that was to be released this morning. I've yet to check it out. I will be posting and promoting that video. Juck does an amazing job. He knows his Buckeyes. He knows his Big Ten. He knows college football. And I thought we had 50 minutes of great conversation, Juck on Bucks and myself, and we're going to have Juck over here to talk college football with us. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Yeah, I'm trying to wake some people up on all the videos. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, including this one. So please, when you shop on Amazon, use the link that we provide. And I have to admit, I should not get flustered or frustrated concerning when one of my mark, based on what you people tell me is my poise and patience, I should not get flustered and frustrated concerning one thing that does not even involve college football, but this Amazon link, I just don't get it, folks. I just don't get it. Use the Amazon link. You got to get it down in the description section of the videos. And when you shop on Amazon, I'm guessing, unless you people are like fervent, ardent Amazon fans, you're rooting for Amazon to dominate the world. Maybe you are. Maybe that's your position. We want Amazon to dominate the world. You spend your $50 at Amazon, you send the Voice of College Football 2 or 3 or 4. You spend your $100, you send the Voice of College Football 3 or 4 or 5, whatever the case is. It depends on the product. I would think that would be some incentive. You can support the Voice of College Football only one way without spending a penny. Financially support the Voice of College Football. That would be to use the Amazon link And for those of you that already do, thank you so much. I do appreciate you. Absolutely. Thank you for doing that, because I know it's not easy. I know that it's not something that's readily available. I know that it's easy. I'm the same way. There are tons of podcasts out there, probably none of which you guys have ever heard of or partake in, because none of them are sports podcasts. But there are a number of podcasters out there that I support, and my intent is to support them. But if they threw an Amazon link at me, would I use it? I hope I would. I hope I would take note of that and say, you know what? This is going to contribute to a good cause. Boom, I'm going to do this. But I can't guarantee that. So I appreciate in your hustle and bustle of your everyday lives, you forget about such things. But please, while you're thinking of it right now, and if you've not thought of it, I'm trying my best to try to get you to think of it. Grab the Amazon link in the description section of this video and all the videos here at the Voice of College Football, not just on this channel, but all the channels. And it's the same link, so you obviously don't have to grab it over and over and over and over. Grab it once, put it somewhere where you will remember it. Steve Deace, Michigan podcast, standing by. The audio from everything we do here at the Voice of College Football on the main channel, you can catch that on your favorite audio platform. Also, when we've got Steve on, if you want to leave a super chat contribution, I'll make sure that your comment or question gets to Steve and or myself. Are Steve and I going to take off the gloves today and go at it? A lot of people want to see that all the time. Ohio State fan. At least I was an Ohio State fan. I'm going with a new team this year. It is hard, folks. It is a burden. It is a burden. I did not realize until the last couple of years, until it really struck me, it is a burden. It's a heavy burden in my position to root for the most successful college football program in history. It's difficult to do. It is a difficult position to put yourself in. When I was just a little punk of 8 years old back in Northeast Ohio, I didn't foresee this. I thought I'd be a sportscaster. I either thought I was going to be a wide receiver, and then by the time I was about, 17 or 18, a sportscaster or a sports journalist. Did want to be a sports writer at one point, but I saw the writing on the wall with sports writing. Anyway, needless to say, I did not select Ohio State as my favorite team. Growing up in Ohio, I did the right thing. So you at least have to appreciate that. You grow up in Missouri, you should be a Missouri fan. You grow up in Nebraska, you should be a Nebraska fan, so forth. But I grew up in Ohio, so of course I latched on to the home team. Little did I know I would have this cross to bear. Pardon the expression there. That's a bit extreme. I don't want to go there. This burden I would have to carry of having my team in the middle of just about every argument concerning college football status, historically, currently, and otherwise. We do appreciate everybody being here. We know the kickoff times were announced across college football for a number of teams for the length of the season, and otherwise, we're going to look into that. Scheduled kickoffs. Got it. Our On the Move show with Leanne Herring is every Wednesday night. There it is. Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern. We're here. We're taking your calls. We were here for 2.5 hours last night. God bless Leanne for doing that. I certainly wanted to check out much earlier than 2.5 hours. That was my 6th show of the day. It's my 6th show of the day. They were all fun, but still. So again, be here on Wednesday nights. The intel that she brings, consider this. Georgia got a wide receiver commit, and within minutes, within hours, she's on the phone with him, and she's getting direct quotes from Georgia's latest commit. And she is doing this over and over and over and over. So the intel that she provides, she is getting it firsthand by going to camps, by watching film, by going and talking directly to the athletes. And we're talking about some of the top high school football players in the nation, one of which will appear on our Ole Miss show next week. She reeled in a tremendous interview for us for the Ole Miss show. That's Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time next week. Who's in the chat? Oh boy, already offending. Well, I doubt if you can offend Steve Deace. He has to deal with much worse than petty sports fans. But insulting my guest already. Joe says, I really like Steve Deace. I've been following him for years. Steve is very intelligent. Besides having other qualities, Steve is the type guy, and I do not fit in this category. I do not have the gift of gab. I just get up here and do my best. Most of the time, do my best. At times, I don't do my best. But I will say that, just being honest, it's just like your favorite wide receiver. They certainly coast on a few routes here and there, right? Yeah. But, you could have Steve. He's one of these guys that if you said, describe this doorknob over here, he could talk about it for 45 minutes. I would give you about 3 sentences, and that would be it. And I'd say, well, I told you everything meaningful about the doorknob. But, yeah, we do appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. I believe we've got a call, and that would be one Kyle Loomis checking in from E2C Network. Kyle, how you doing?
Doing well. We are sitting here in the middle of the off season. Just everybody's itching to talk about football stuff, but we're just so far away right now. I'm ready for the season to be here, and I imagine a lot of not just Auburn fans, but everybody else is, and I know you are too, with all the great football coverage that you do.
Thank you, sir. You as well. You can catch Kyle on E2C Network. It's right here on YouTube.
Yes.
You type in those letters, you will find it immediately.
Absolutely.
Has this been a good off season for Auburn when you take everything into account?
Yeah, I guess that's the question, right? And how do you quantify good? Did they get the positions of need filled? Did they lose anybody? I mean, it's just begun, so much can still happen. Somebody can academically not qualify. Heaven, I'm gonna knock on wood right here. Injuries can happen, things like that. But I guess in ways that we can measure, Coach Freeze after spring talked about some key positions that needed to be filled from the transfer portal, and they did those right away. Linebacker, defensive line, looking at a couple of their names right now. Cornerback was one of the spaces as well. Looking for guys that can either bring experience to the table for a young group, maybe for example, the linebacker group, which lost a ton of talent. They brought over a guy like Caleb Wheatland from Maryland to fill in and help bridge the gap from the young talent that is starting to arrive and starting to become more prominent. But the big question is, are they ready to take center stage when you lose guys like Eugene Asante, Austin Keys, Dorian Mausi, all guys who were just really strong and made that linebacker group. And it's not just a linebacker group, it's other areas as well, but that's just one that pops to the top of my mind. The point is, in that question, were needs filled? The answer is yes. So I'd say we're off to a good start.
Kyle, has Hugh Freeze made any commitment toward Jackson Arnold, or is this going to continue on through August camp?
Yeah, it looks like we have gotten about as good of a commitment as you can get, right? He has not specifically said in recent interviews that Jackson Arnold is the starter. Those words and that phrase have not said, but what he has spoken about is that he's the number one right now. And I think that gets missed a lot by fans. Sometimes they assume that is just flat out he's the starter. And yes, that can be interpreted that way. And I take that as it is. I think we all looked at the quarterback room, which was gutted, and saw this guy coming from the SEC now with Oklahoma. You've got a brand new guy in Deuce Knight who's unproven at this level. And then you've got Ashton Daniels coming over from Stanford. And while he's very experienced, let's just be honest, hasn't had the most incredible statistical career thus far, but that doesn't mean he can't be a reliable option at the quarterback room. Jackson Arnold looks like the guy. I think the coaches know that. The team knows that. If you look at the way they share stuff on social media, it's very apparent. And in a recent interviews, when asked about this particular topic, he has said phrases like he's the number one, but he wants him looking over his shoulder. He wants the competition to be strong in that room. He wants Jackson Arnold not necessarily to not feel comfortable, but to know that he's got to perform. This isn't just something that he walked in here and was handed, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. We've got Kyle Loomis here, E2C Network. Auburn community is his focus, not just the football team, not just basketball, but beyond that in regards to all the athletic competition, and beyond that in regards to the Auburn community, the Auburn family, E2C Network with Kyle. So as we make our way to SEC Media Days in about 6 weeks, and then we hop right into August camp, for you, what is the biggest question mark and area that needs to be focused on as of August 1st?
I think you can relate it to SEC Media Days. Who is going to be the leaders of this team? I think there's some clear options in the defensive side of things, because when you go to media days, and sometimes it's just in the de facto leaders. They may not be the strongest players or the players that play the most. They may just be the emotional or the rah-rah type players that represent you there. But sometimes it is your best offensive player, your best defensive player, maybe sometimes your best special teams player. But to kind of take what you were saying there and carry it over to answer the question, I think Keldrick Falk is your go-to leader of this team and the de facto leader of the team right now, even as a true junior. I mean, he has had an incredible first 2 years at Auburn. He's already, if you follow projections, he's projected to be in the first round, high up already. So I think he's a clear leader. But who else is it going to be? You look to your quarterbacks. Jackson Arnold just got here. How quickly can he establish himself as a leader in that room and for the team? It seems to be going pretty well from what, like I said, they show on social media. But that's my big question right now. Who are the leaders that are going to step up? Yes, on the field, but stuff off the field as well. Running back room is probably a place that a lot of I think I saw someone in the comments bring that up as well about who's going to take over for Jarquez Hunter. He has led this running back room for the last 2-3 years, 2 years mainly. And is this Damari Alston's time to shine at running back? Jeremiah Cobb is a fan favorite that a lot of people are ready to maybe overtake Damari in seniority. So the questions that really are out there are, how are some of these positions going to shake out? Because while there's not been a verbatim said this is the number one guy at quarterback, or excuse me, the starter at quarterback, he has been called the number one. Some of those other positions, running back, wide receiver, there's a lot of talk around Eric Singleton coming over from Georgia Tech with Cam Coleman. Is it Cam Coleman's room now, or is Eric Singleton going to pull a Keandre Lambert-Smith and just dominate in 1 year like he did, which was such a great thing to see last year? So I think those are the main questions, is not only who's the leaders of the team, but who is going to be the leaders of those particular rooms. Is there somebody going to overtake someone else, or is the obvious choice a Cam Coleman, the obvious choice of Jackson Arnold, the obvious choice of Damari Alston? Are they going to be the leaders on the field and off the field too?
Okay, Kyle Loomis here, breaking down the Auburn Tigers. Sam asked this question, and I'll preface it this way, Kyle, that if you're anything like me, my evaluation of any team starts with a record. I think you got to start there. That's the most obvious metric, and that's why they go out there every Saturday. It's to either win or lose, and that's the judgment on that particular game. However, there are nuances to it where I've seen like 7-5 teams that I thought, wow, that they played a brutal schedule. They were really good. They played some of the best teams in the country down to the wire. And sure, they went 7-5, but man, that team's got something going on. That coach is headed in the right direction versus they went 8-4. Mm-hmm. They beat a bunch of cupcakes. They played 4 good teams. They got slaughtered. There's a huge gap that they've got to scale to get to the next level. So it starts with the win total, certainly, but your expectations for Auburn, or your reasonable optimism for the Auburn Tigers this year.
Well, I know the guy who's commenting right now, Sam, and he knows how adamant I've been. It's way too early for legitimate predictions. But here's what I go with every year, and it's not going to change this year. I look at what Auburn is capable of each and every year, in my opinion, when you look at, yes, what's currently there, but just the grand scheme of things. When you talk about support, financial and just emotional support of the fan base, what they bring to the table and that. But obviously, we're focusing mainly about the team. I think Auburn football should be able to expect 8-4 as a bare minimum every year. And that's where I kind of start. And the question is as we get further into the off season, do things happen that change that trajectory? Do you have a major injury, or do you have a surprise addition that you weren't expecting? Or is the hubbub coming out of fall camp starting to push you a little bit more in the positive column? As more of a fan in the way I cover things, I tend to kind of give into my orange and blue goggles and tend to think a little bit more positively as we get closer. That's just my nature. But I start at 8-4. And so to hit the question that was brought up, is Auburn going to win 8 games this season? That's my expectation. I mean, that's my expectation based off of just where the program is, should always be at a bare minimum. That's where it should be. I don't know, Mark, if you saw a couple of weeks ago some comments that were made by Hugh Freeze that a lot of Auburn fans took exception with, that they took away that the goal was only to make a bowl game. Like somehow he wasn't trying to go out there and make the playoffs and win a national championship. In no way was he making that statement. In no way was, in my opinion, I don't know if you saw those comments or not, but there's been a lot of talk about this third year. If Hugh doesn't meet X criteria, are we going to move on again? I surely hope not. I think one of the biggest problems for Auburn has been their lack of continuity even before Hugh. So 8 wins seems very feasible. It's where I'm starting, and I start every year on that. I have seen nothing right now that makes me shift backwards or forwards of that until we get much closer in the season.
Yeah, we are concluding a week in which the coaches convened in Destin, Florida at SEC meetings. I saw some of the comments, both the actual audio and video, and saw others in writing. Brian Kelly's comments concerning SEC coaches across the board wanting to play the Big Ten. He made those comments. Eli Drinkwitz of Missouri, for as fine a job as he's doing, they're 21-5 the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I thought he was an odd representative of the story that I read to be talking about, well, we need to get back to winning national championships, and the Big Ten's won the last 2, but we still feel we're the best and we're going to get back to winning national championships. And I'm thinking, I don't think you're really the representative for that. I may be floored here in the next few years if Missouri's winning a national championship. But anyway, anything out of Hugh Freeze this week? I did not see Hugh Freeze talk to either Feinbaum or show up in any other rhetoric. Was he out there with anything in particular?
I didn't see anything new. How about that? And I could have missed something, but I think that's kind of it. Some interviews that he had before those meetings at SEC, I think, did enough to get some talk. So I think it was probably one of those things the PR team said, yeah, go answer your questions, but we need to make a little less noise this week, or at least not give people who are jumping to conclusions about statements too much more to say. I think it's really this, Mark. We're sitting in a time where the biggest question, who's going to play quarterback, seems answered. It looks like all the pieces that Hugh needs are mostly assembled. He did ask for 4 full recruiting cycles, and this would be the 3rd. So I think really now it's just about results, and there's not many questions other than, can you get the results in the field? We know that he can recruit. We know that he can not only recruit based off of stars and rankings, but he can also get those guys out onto the field very quickly, overtake some of the starters that were already there, but also end up being all SEC type of players and getting those accolades. So I think that's where we're sitting at, and maybe why there's not been so much conversation about it. And maybe even not so much for Hugh to talk about this week at the SEC meetings. I think right now, probably less is more, if you catch my drift.
Kyle, this might be a little bit unfair to spring this on you, so
right,
I'm not going to get some kind of like in-depth analysis on it or anything, but The Athletic this week, and of course, this is the time of year to do this, has been displaying their top 25 programs of the 21st century, their top 25 coaches, and in this particular list, their top 25 teams, specific teams. And so you've got no context here in regards to who was ranked ahead of or behind Auburn. But this is, of course, the Cam Newton 2010 team that had the great comeback against Alabama and went on and won the national championship against Oregon. Number 22 on the list. How does that just hit you?
feels very low, very low. But again, you try to look at it first from your orange and blue glasses perspective, but then take those off as best you can. I would say I think that team deserves to be in most categories without the context of knowing what else is in this list and who else is above it, to be in a top 20, top 15 situation. Given the not knowing the context, maybe they could even be higher than that. When you look at this team, the name Cam Newton is the only thing that you need to say here. And I've had this conversation a lot lately on our channel and other platforms we do content on about that team would have been nothing without Cam Newton. And while I do grant you that Cam Newton changed the trajectory of that team's ultimate outcome drastically, you can't ignore what the rest of the team around him did to even more bring out not what he could do as a football player. There's a reason that the list is up here, but I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't even need it to quote some of the offensive linemen from there. Mike Berry and Byron Eisen, two of the best pulling guards that ever were at Auburn, in my opinion, in my lifetime. Lee Zimba, right tackle or left tackle, I can't remember whichever one it was. Ryan Pugh at center. And I always forget the last one. My viewers who are here with us today are probably laughing because they always know I blank out on the last one. But there's a reason we know those guys. That offensive line ran the Gus Malzahn system to a T and opened up for an incredible athlete to do what he did best, make people miss and run them over and score touchdowns. He had some great wide receivers too. The defense, I think, looking back at it, and at the time wasn't the greatest, but it also wasn't really bad either. It had a lot of great athletes like Josh Bynes, Zach Etheridge, many others as well on that squad. So 22 to me feels a little low. A little bit more context. Yeah, it would have been, maybe I could give a little bit better of a guess, but I think the 2010 Auburn Tigers on most lists should be closing in on the top 15 type discussion.
Okay. We will not spend 45 minutes looking at the 21 teams ahead to get that analysis, because we could, of course, be comparing all sorts of things.
Right.
Now, this would be the top 25 programs. So the collection of all the teams from 2000 on, 21st century. Now, this is kind of ironic. This is how it hits me, Kyle, with Auburn at number 15, is that I see this, and this is, again, everyone from The Athletic. And I constantly, anytime I bring up Auburn, it seems like it follows out of my mouth that I say something about them being a top 15 program historically. And here they are, number 24 in win percentage for the century. And they went to 5 BCS and New Year's 6 games. They've got the national championship in 2010, asterisk 2004. And then, of course, conference championships and on down the line in terms of the sheer numbers. So how does this one hit you? Again, this being an aggregate of the last 25 years.
I think Auburn is a top 15 team easily of the last 25 years. The problem becomes, and I know we're talking about that time frame, but you can look throughout Auburn's history. They go on these little portions of time where they just tank for a while, but then they all of a sudden it's just like they get their act back together. It's like they want to take a break off or something like that. National title obviously gets you clout. There should be another one, as you talked about already. Certainly, you have enough SEC championships to warrant being, relevant in the SEC conversation. Top 15 in that, as I kind of said with the other situation too, we were talking about a specific team, but as a program, easily, I think so.
And if I'm Auburn, if I'm the authority at Auburn, I claim that national championship from 2004.
It's funny you say that. So I'm going to say I saw this with my own eyes, unless I was sick or something and hallucinating. Obviously, I perused the website for Auburn a lot, just checking on things. And I just happened to one day be looking for some piece of information on the roster. And I came across a page where it had our national championships listed, 1957, 2010. But that day there were 2 others. And I believe it was 2004 and one of the old ones. And now I can't find that page anymore. So I don't know if I thought for a second, did I just stumble upon some web page that wasn't supposed to go live yet? but I can't find it anymore. There's been a lot of talk about that. I think his name is Michael Scott Nicky, wrote a whole book about this subject, Auburn's unclaimed titles. I know that you've written your book recently as well on just some of the best teams. There's been a lot of conversation on that, and Auburn finds itself in a situation where it could claim several national titles. The question, I should say, not claim. The question is, should they? Feels very Alabama-like to claim national titles you have no business claiming. Yes, I said that for you Bama fans in the chat. But, I think 2004 with USC vacating everything, Oklahoma didn't really look good. A lot of people already said it should have been Auburn versus USC for the national title. 1993 is a tough one. It just is because of they were so good, but they were on probation. And then there's many others as well. I do love talking about this and thinking about the what if type of scenarios, but I feel like if we were going to claim some more, we would have already done it. That little weird webpage I swear I saw one day convinced me it was finally happening, but that was about a year ago and it hasn't happened since.
Yeah, if I'm running the show at Auburn, I'm going after 1983 and I'm going after 2004. Now, 1993, like you mentioned there, I've been so far removed from exactly what happened there. I was fairly close to that investigation, not intimately. I'm not talking from, but in 1994, I showed up at a Southern TV station, was covering the SEC from 1994 on. And so that was very close to what was going on at that point. And if I had some kind of adamant claim as an Auburn supporter or Auburn administrator as that being unjust, that would be different. But as long as I felt as though, yes, we overstepped our boundaries and that the impact of that player or series of players playing for us helped us and they should not have been involved, that sort of thing. I'm not claiming a national championship there. But in 2004, when you do everything that you possibly can do, and I'm not trying to take one away from anyone else. Right. I'm just saying I would go claim one as an Auburn supporter in 2004, because again, you're playing in arguably the toughest league. You do everything that's asked of you. You win every game. It's not like you lost a game and the other national champion lost a game. You were perfect. And then 1983, I just think that that Auburn played the toughest schedule in the country by far. Their schedule is unbelievable. What they played in 1983, like it would be like, and then scheduling like Ohio State, Clemson, and USC or something as a non-conference schedule. It was a brutal schedule, and they did lose a game, but there's a big log jam with one loss. So I believe that based on the schedule strength and finishing out with a bowl win, that they had as much claim as anybody else.
Yeah. And if you look at I forget who ultimately won it that year, but they launched them up from Miami from what, like 5 or 4 or something like that?
5-1.
5-1. Explain that to me. And I'm so thankful that we have the playoff system now to get rid of some of this stuff. Of course, there's going to be arguments about who should be in, who should be out, how many teams should we have, things like that. But at least that is not going to happen ever again, as long as we keep a playoff format. But that 1983 team, it makes no sense whatsoever that Auburn wasn't the national titles that year. So you're probably, the ones we've talked about are their best candidates and the ones that you and I are going to have the best knowledge base on when we get further back into Auburn's history, which there are some. It gets harder for us to make that case just because it would just be about statistics. We didn't, I guess, experience those. You're pretty young too, Mark. I know I'm younger than you, but you're still a pretty young guy too.
And so to be clear about this concerning with other fan bases that might be in the chat or see this a little bit later, I am not opting that Auburn is going to be the national champion in 1983 in place of anybody else.
Yeah.
It just because of what the system was, I have no issue with there being like 5 national champions. If they all have,
if that's what it was. Yeah.
If that's what it was. Now, I don't like that. I would rather have had a system in which they would have played and it would have been determined. But looking back on it, when there is no clear national champion, and if 3 or 4 have similar qualifications, then that's what's fair to me.
Yeah. As long as we're talking about it from the context of that was the system, there could be multiple champions, then you're not, like you said, you're not taking anything from everyone. But then you've got the scenario of 2004 where there's no national champion. Auburn just needs to go ahead and take the thing. I mean, let's do it today, I say.
There you go. Kyle, we appreciate you stopping by, and we want to make sure everyone is encouraged to head on over to E2C Network. It's right here on YouTube to check out the Auburn take from Kyle.
Yes, we appreciate you guys stopping by and checking us out. Got all kinds of stuff. A lot of baseball right now, obviously, with Auburn hosting the regional. But if your flavor is just football, we got plenty of that. If your flavor is non-sports Auburn stuff, we got that too.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
All right. We keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Let's still get through some of your comments. I saw some interesting stuff in here somewhere. And again, I would like to get to the schedule, man. Just not enough time with everything else I've got going on that does not involve the Voice of College Football, unfortunately. Unfortunately, that there's some great content ideas to dive into that I have not had an opportunity to. The real MVP called last night and suggested I slice up this Greg Sankey proposal of the 5+11, the 5+11 model with the 5 conference champions and the 11 at-large berths that he has not necessarily proposed, but he's thrown out as an option, and then go through the last, let's say, 10 years of the CFP and see how that would have played out over the last 10 or 11 years. So if I get time, I will do that. I will also check out the schedules, and we might as well do that right now. I could not find a site that had a lineup of the games and the kickoffs that were supposed to be announced today, but if ESPN is on its game, which could be questionable, if we go to the overall schedule, we may, okay, this, no. So ESPN is not on its game. They only had their games listed on their TV schedule. I know I can just about guess that most of the chat is most concerned with the ACC schedule, because that I could find. Sure, you can't wait to talk about the Stanford-Hawaii game that's been slotted for CBS on August 23rd. So it looks like our first post-game show of the season, which certainly trumps the Stanford-Hawaii game. Our first post-game call-in show of the season will be after the Stanford-Hawaii game, about 11 o'clock Eastern time on that Saturday night, week 0. CBS. Then in week 1, the ACC network's got East Carolina, NC State. It's got Elon against Duke. Yikes, but that is going to be an ACC Network Plus game. Anything of note here? I like this Friday night game, Georgia Tech going to Colorado, with Jeff Collins doing a nice job at Georgia Tech, Deion Sanders in Colorado. And Karen, I got to say, if you were in the chat right now, that I did have it cross my mind today when I was contemplating who's going to be my favorite team for 2025. And Coastal Carolina, once again, they have a huge step on everyone else at this point because of the free concessions. I love that. But I thought, I'm going to have to order some gear for whoever turns out to be my favorite team this year. And I've already got one in the bank with Colorado. Thanks to Karen, I've got the Colorado polo that I can sport here. But I just don't know that I could tell all of you that Colorado is my favorite team without busting up laughing. I don't think I could hold to that. I don't think that I could say that I am rooting for a Deion Sanders-led team without, just splitting a gut. On that first Saturday of the season, we got Syracuse taking on Tennessee. That's an ABC game at noon Eastern. Pitt and Duquesne, we We'll all be glued to that one. Fordham, Boston College, East Kentucky, and Louisville. Those are ACC network games. Alabama, Florida State. That's a big one at 3:30 Eastern. Coastal Carolina, that's my team, going to Virginia to take on the Cavaliers. And secretly, I somewhat pull for Virginia, too. Why? I don't know. They never win. They suck. They're irrelevant. They're insignificant. They've never won anything in football. Nothing. So I would like them to start doing that, just to be different. Coastal Carolina at Virginia. LSU at Clemson. So we will be watching Clemson and LSU from Death Valley, one of the Death Valleys, on ABC that night. So that will certainly have my attention. And then something called East Texas A&M is taking on SMU, and Cal at Oregon State. That's a late night game that will be on while we're on live. I never catch any West Coast football anymore because we're live. But we're going to have Cal and Oregon State, former Pac-12 foes. Sunday games. This is a nice little doubleheader right here. Virginia Tech, South Carolina. ACC and the SEC. Notre Dame, Miami. And we've got the ACC and the SEC once again playing more games against each other than any two conferences anywhere. Monday night, September 1st, Bill Belichick makes his debut against TCU. And then we dive into week 2. And again, these are only ACC games. If somebody finds a link to the other conferences, please let me know. I'm not necessarily going to highlight the conference games because they are games that are played all the time that don't really interest me right now. I'm interested by the non-conference games. Illinois at Duke. That's on ABC or ESPN at noon Eastern Time. Brett Bielema and Illinois. A lot of people like Illinois this year. They're a chic pick with one of the top metrics of starting production coming back from last season, and also their quarterback in Luke Altmaier. Baylor at SMU. Nice little matchup on the CW. UConn and Syracuse play a lot. Why? I don't know. They're close. They're in the same region. Don't know why Syracuse has to be playing UConn all the time. But it is what it is. North Carolina and Charlotte. Boston College at Michigan State. That's an NBC game that, of course, those two got together in Chestnut Hill last year, and Boston College picked off Aiden Childs at the wire in the end zone to preserve the win for BC against Michigan State. Vandy defeated Virginia Tech last year. This time they've got to go to Blacksburg, and that's a nice little matchup on Saturday night. Vandy at Virginia Tech, Stanford at BYU. I like some of these matchups from the ACC. They're not marquee matchups, but they're nice little matchups. And they're fairly even. Should be very even between BC and Boston, Michigan State, and Vandy and Virginia Tech. Week 3 on that Thursday, NC State and Wake Forest. The Friday game, Syracuse is hosting Colgate. Beautiful. Saturday, a bunch of conference games. Pitt at West Virginia, of course, the backyard brawl. One of the highlights of the rivalry games every year. The Big Ten gets into play against the ACC. This is one of the few Big Ten ACC games. Minnesota at Cal. And Cal plays San Diego State to lead off the next Saturday. And then, so we don't have a complete schedule it's just for the first 3 weeks of the season. And any other highlights here? Louisville and Miami on a Friday night. Good football. North Carolina, Syracuse, not bad on a Friday. Clemson, Louisville. The ACC really trying to counter the Big Ten on Fridays, because we know that last year that the Big Ten loaded up on Fox with all those Friday games a lot of mid-tier Big Ten games, and the ACC is doing that with ESPN this year, probably knowing if you look at a Saturday, obviously on Fox, but also on ESPN and ABC, there's a lot of SEC to go around, and the Big Ten is all over Fox, CBS, and NBC. So the ACC has a difficult time getting on ABC and ESPN outside of the obvious matchups. And so we've seen a concerted effort, and ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips actually said this, to move the ACC to Friday night. And we're seeing a lot of decent games on Friday night for the ACC, and we're seeing some double headers. Louisville, Miami, North Carolina, Cal playing a double header on a Friday night. More Friday games out of the ACC. Clemson, Louisville, key game. Florida State, NC State, stand by on that one. Georgia, Georgia Tech, the day after Thanksgiving. There it is from the ACC. Truth is asking the ultimate question here today. Wow, this is a weighty question. Where is the truth teller? Wow. We are all for the truth here at the Voice of College Football. Whoever speaks truth. Yo, 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 yo. Traveling Fools is here. Troy's here. Doreen has a Prime hoodie. Do you? Okay. Garrison is asking me, Mark, do you know Coach Donnelly from the University of St. Francis who just retired? No, I don't know who that gentleman is. And Jackson, thank you so much for reminding everyone. Disputed National Champions is the book. I can just about guarantee that you will enjoy it. How can I do that? Well, I can't guarantee it, but I can almost guarantee it because the evidence says that we've received feedback from about 100 people, and they've all said that they love the book. And so I appreciate their responses and their feedback, and I believe that you can take their word for it. Don't take my word for it. Take their word for it. Disputed National Champions, you get the link down in the description section of this video, or you just look it up on Amazon, Disputed National Champions. We should be just about 10 minutes away from Steve Deace, Michigan Podcast, talking some Michigan football and what's going on with the college football playoff and beyond. Steve has also sent me his coaches rankings for 2025, but I'm going to make sure that those are for public consumption because sometimes he holds those for a later date. Yeah, Matthew, if we don't know the truth at this point, when we've got truth and the truth in the chat, wow. Everybody in the chat better be on their P's and Q's, better be at your finest, better be at your best. There should be absolutely no inaccurate information, no lying, no nothing in the chat that is not complete truth, because you are definitely going to get caught. I police the chat pretty well and root out the inaccurate information typically, but I cannot compete with truth and the truth. You get those two together, and you people have no chance of sliding past any false information today. It's just not going to happen. Yakov 22 is asking, Mark, who did you root for in the 1983 Orange Bowl? And by the 83 Orange Bowl, I believe you mean the 1983 season, the 84 Orange Bowl of January 1st. Actually, the 83 Orange Bowl would have been the previous season of Nebraska and LSU. but nobody remembers that game, I guess, except for me. So we'll move on to the historic game. I was rooting for Nebraska. Why? I have no idea. I can't answer that. I know that I was rooting for Nebraska, and I know that I was flipping back and forth. Unfortunately, these are the days of, unless you had the resources of multiple televisions in your home, which, thinking back, we had like a major TV in our living room, and then my mom had something that was considered a television at the time, but it was, like 11 inches or something in her room, but I rarely ever touched that. So there was always a battle for TV time. But I'm sure on New Year's night, everybody else was preoccupied. So I had my run of the television, I believe, and I was flipping back and forth between Nebraska and Miami, and then also, of course, the Sugar Bowl with Michigan and Auburn. Flipping back and forth. Yeah. Young people, feel great, feel happy that you never had to flip back and forth on a manual TV and just, after years and years of wear and tear, we eventually just ripped the knob off the TV. Oh, that's a great question right there. Matthew asks, Mark, who is your least favorite head football coach ever? Wow. Well, I got to say that at the time, growing up, rooting for my team, and the first memory I have of Bo Schembechler was him being carried off the field at Ohio Stadium, and I barely knew what football was at the time. I just knew that I hated Michigan, and I saw him carried off the field, and I again, I didn't know much about football, but when I go into something, I go from 0 to 100. That's what happened. I went from 0 one season to 100. But at the conclusion of that particular season, which would have been 1976, I had no compass, no context, no nothing, but something told me to hate this man and hate this team. And my family could care less about football. None of them didn't care anything about football. I have pretty much been a lone wolf in my family concerning all sorts of entertainment options and sports and interests. So that's the first name that comes to mind. But, Bo was out of the way by 1988. 89 was his last season. And of course, I didn't like Bo Schembechler because he coached my rival. But I would say that going back to the roots, the origin of the rivalry between Woody and Bo, and that Woody was his mentor. And really, once you stepped outside the lines, and once they got past being rivals on the field, that they were very close. That's what's ironic about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, and that its most epic period was Bo and Woody. And there's such vitriol between these fan bases that if they really would do their homework, not that you have to do what Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler did and take up them as being models or examples, but if we did, they had the greatest respect for the other team. They would never say some of the statements that I often see, that I regularly see, that I see every day out of Ohio State and Michigan fans. They spoke about the other team. I have commonly heard, and of course, there wasn't nearly as much documented back then on videotape and otherwise of these coaches. But I even know of multiple times I've heard out of the mouth of both Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes that and it didn't even matter what the rankings said. It didn't even matter that maybe the other team had lost 3 games, that they said, you're playing the best team in the country today. They would say that the week of the Ohio State Michigan game, and they might be playing a 7-3 Ohio State team, and Bo Schembechler would still be saying, you're playing the best team in the country this week. And Woody Hayes would say the same thing about Michigan. Trying to think of any coaches that I don't like right now. I must just be such a loving person that there are no coaches that really, some of Deion's antics bother me, but the longer he's around and coaching at Colorado, the more I don't care and the more it seems to be effective. And he is just a different dude. He is one of a kind. And I hate to say that because in a sense, we're all one of a kind, but he is certainly one of a kind in the coaching profession. And he is taking liberties that other coaches don't. And he's getting away with it because he's Deion Sanders and he knows he can. And that's okay. That's all right. He understands. He understands his charisma, his popularity, his background as being, what other college football coach, and some of them played really good college football or NFL football, but not to the extent that they're going to point to a kid and say, look at my NFL career. But man, you're talking about arguably the greatest at his position in history. So the whole Deion situation, and certainly when he was at Jackson State and how he conducted himself there, I didn't particularly care for. But as he stays in the sport, his level of irritation on me is lessening, waning considerably. My favorite college football coaches right now, I would love to see if anybody knows my favorite college football coaches. There are 2 that come to mind. That's funny, Edward, that you say that your stepmom hated Tommy Lasorda. Tommy Lasorda, by the way, came to Mississippi State baseball practice in the fall of 2000 and visited the Mississippi State football team. And I got to sit down with Tommy Lasorda for 15 or 20 minutes and talk baseball. It was the most amazing thing. And he signed a baseball for me that I still have. So Tommy Lasorda is thumbs up in my, and even was before that. I just think he's a character and just a funny dude and just a great ambassador of the sport. Talking about an ambassador for the sport, we now welcome in our buddy Steve Deace from Michigan Podcast. Steve, how you doing?
I'm well, Mark. How are you?
I am doing just fine. I don't know if you heard the last couple statements I made, but I was talking about Tommy Lasorda of all people.
I did not. No, I'm sorry. I was dealing with these 75 authentications that the StreamYard demands.
I hate to put that on you, but Steve, we got you now.
All right. I appreciate it.
Let's start with this. And of course, we appreciate Steve stopping by. And again, Michigan Podcast is your destination there with also the Bigger 10 show there with Steve. All right. Let's start with Michigan. We'll start with Michigan. I've seen this set of you both in your chat when I check it out. And I know you don't check out your own comment section, but I got to admit, I peek once in a while thinking, let's see what these people have to say about me. And they're mostly complimentary, so I appreciate that. But some people both here and on your own channel will say, Steve is not a good Michigan fan. He's a bad Michigan fan. And I guess that stems from you missing the game a few times. And that also stems from you actually attempting to be objective and tell the truth. And people don't always like that.
I missed it once.
Okay.
I missed it in 2021 because we didn't play it in 2020. And I was a complete and total advocate of quitting on that game. And we did. We had a serious COVID problem. We could have played the game though. I mean, it was 100-0. Okay. But I was very much in favor of punking out and not playing. He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. And if Michigan had played that game, it was 100-0. Ryan Day would have hung his 100. Jimmy would have been fired, and the next 3 years would not have happened. So that's what we call in history a strategic retreat. Michigan Dunkirked on that 2020 game, got the hell off of that beach, said we're going to run away. We'll come back and fight when we've got, we're better equipped and better prepared. And they did. So the next year I did miss because I vowed I was never, after what happened in 2019. I mean, 2018 and 19 back-to-back traumatized me. So I vowed until Michigan wins, I'm not watching anymore. And so the first year I enforced that, I went and saw Kong versus Godzilla in the movies. That was Thanksgiving weekend of 21. When I got home, I did record the game just in case we won. And so I turned it on when I got home. I couldn't believe we actually won. So I did do that, but it only happened one time because we've been winning it ever since.
So if we could reverse to 2019 or 2020, and we would have peeked ahead and been able to see everything that transpired past that, this is like best case scenario, except maybe having Ohio State just go to the gutter and turn in 3-9 seasons, that they stay elite and Michigan's still able to win 4 consecutive games, 3 consecutive Big Ten titles, and a natty.
Yeah, see, I'm not like an Ohio State fan. I use logic and reason, unlike many of the bucknuts I see online. So there's nothing to gain from beating 3-9 bottomed out Ohio State. I love the fact you guys are winning big because you're not beating us. How do I care if you win every other game if you're not beating us? Just makes us look better. Like, I've never understood the overrated chant. That's the dumbest thing in the history of fandom. You beat a good team, a highly ranked team, and you chant overrated. So your immediate inclination is to demean your own accomplishment. If anything, I'd be out there voting. If I was that dude, if I'm the coach and we just beat a top 10 team, after we beat them, I'm like voting them number 1. Okay. If anything, I'm voting them higher. All right. To make me look better. I have no idea why a fan's inclination is after you get a big win to demean the win that you just had. So, I mean, like I told you last year, remember, I was fine if Ohio State didn't win the Natty. I was fine if they did. I was going to laugh if you all didn't win the Natty. I was going to laugh if you did. All right. So as long as we've got scoreboard, I don't have my joy is complete. I'm not threatened by what you guys do at all. It means nothing to me, actually. It's when you don't have scoreboard, or when we don't have scoreboard, that I'm threatened. But right now, I'm not very threatened. No. So if everybody can be pleased. I like you. You like me. You guys won a natty. We beat you again. Hey man, everybody's happy. What's wrong with that?
I actually turned the basic math testing on the Michigan side of this equation because I posted something today on Twitter where I simply wanted people to tell me what the series record was since they were born, and they were incapable of doing that, either because they couldn't add or they obviously wanted to dodge the question.
All right, off the top of my head, let me see if I can do this. All right, and see if I might even be able to do the scores. Okay.
Yeah, I can check on the scores. I got the scores.
All right, let me see if I can even do the scores. 73, 10-10 tie. Okay. 74, Ohio State 12, Michigan 10. All right, so that's 1-1. 75, I want to say that was 21-14 Ohio State.
Bingo.
Okay, so that's 2-1. 76, Michigan won 22-0, right? That's 1-2-1. 77, Michigan won 14-6, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's what, 3-2-1 now? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. 78, I think Michigan won, was it 14-3?
14-3.
All right, so that's 4-2-1, right?
You've lost me on the score count. I'll do that at the end.
Okay. All right. So you add up. Let me see if
all we have to do is add. Let's just keep track of Michigan wins, and then we can do the math.
All right. So Michigan won in 76, 77, 78. Woody's last 3 years never scored an offensive touchdown. Okay. 79, Ohio State won. That was their undefeated team. I want to say that was 17-10.
18-15.
18-15. That's right. That's right. That was a really odd score. So Michigan's at 3 wins. 80, Michigan won 9-3. That's 4 wins. 81 is the Schleister game. Stop Michigan from going to the Rose Bowl. I want to say that was like 24-17.
14-9.
I wasn't even close on that one. 82 was Michigan already had clinched the Big Ten champion, or the Rose Bowl bid. They shared the title. Went down to Columbus and lost pretty bad. I think it was like 20-9.
24-14.
Okay, so roughly this margin. So we're at what, 5 wins? 76, 77, 78, 80, 4 wins. Okay. 83, Michigan won 24-21.
83 was, that doesn't sound, Yeah, it was 24-21.
Yeah, Michigan won was up 24-14. I think Ohio State scored a garbage time touchdown late, I think. And it was 24-21, I think it was. That game was. That's the game that
You're
made me
correct. 24-21. Yes,
that was the first
24-21.
time I moved to Michigan. That was the first game. We moved that weekend, and that's when I fell in love. All right, that was the Rick Rogers game.
I was mixing it up with the 85 score that we'll get to, but yeah, 24-21.
All right, 84. That was a terrible Michigan team. Ohio State won the Big Ten that year. So, gosh, was that like 20-3 or something like that?
It was closer than the final score, but 21-6.
Okay. All right. So we're still at what, 5 wins, right?
I think we're at 4, right?
76,
Nope.
77, 78, 81, 83. We're at 5.
Yes. Okay.
All right. 85, Michigan won 27-17. That's the Harbaugh, the Colasar game. So we're at 6 wins. 86, Michigan won 26-24. That's when Matt France missed that field goal, right? All right.
Yep.
So that's that puts us at 7 wins. 87 is the Earl Bruce game. I want to say it was like 21-17 or something like that.
23-20.
All right, so close. 88, Michigan was up 20-0. Ohio State came all the way back. That was the Colasar game again. 34-31, I think, was that game, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's 8, right? 8 wins. 89, Bo's last game. I want to say that was like 28-18, another kind of odd score.
Correct.
All right, so we're at 9 wins. 90 was the game where Cooper knew he had to go, thought he had to go for it, and then turned out he didn't. If he just played for the Tide, he would have gone to the Rose Bowl. All right, and went for it on 4th down and didn't get it. Decided to run the option with the pocket quarterback, Greg Fry. Okay, not to be confused with Glenn. Michigan won, I think, was it 16-13? Michigan won that game.
Bingo.
So is that 10 wins now?
Yes.
All right. 91 is the Desmond game. That was a rout, like 31-3, right?
Yep.
So that's 11. 92 was your president said was his greatest win ever. That was a tie. I think it was like 10-10 or something like that.
Yeah. 13-13.
13-13. Yeah. 93 was when we were 6-4 and Ohio State came in without a loss and we won, I think, 28-0.
Yep.
That's 12 wins. 94, probably the most talented Michigan team of my lifetime to do nothing. I mean, that team's just littered with pros, and it did nothing. And never really recovered from the Hail Mary from Colorado. And Ohio State won, I want to say, by maybe like 10 points in Columbus. I don't remember the score. Is that even close?
22-6.
Yeah, so double digits. So 95 is the Biaka Batuka game. 31-23, I think, was the score of that game.
Yes.
Right? So is that 12 wins?
13.
13. 96 was 13-9. That was the Sean Springs slip game, right?
Correct.
And until this year, that was the biggest upset Michigan had ever pulled by point spread in the series since the 69 game. Was that game right there? Michigan was like a 16-point underdog in that game or something like that. 97, that's the Charles Woodson game. Polish off the Heisman, 20-14. So that's 15 wins, right?
Correct.
98 was the team you guys had that should have won the Natty, except for that loss to Michigan State. You had a team that was loaded that year. And I want to say we lost like 34-18 or something like that.
31-16.
Okay. So it was close. 99 was the game I was at. That's the one time I've been to a Michigan-Ohio State game. And that was Tom Brady. And Michigan came back, I think it was 24-17.
Correct.
All right, so that's 16 wins. 2000 is the Drew Henson game. And I want to say it was like 38-26. It was pretty high scoring.
That was it.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's 14 wins.
16.
16. Let me see. Well, now it gets even easier. It's just remembering the scores for me is hard. 2001 was 23-20. Ohio State, right?
26-20.
26-20.
Down a field goal.
Okay,
Yeah.
2002 was the game we kept settling for field goals. You guys won like 16-9 or something?
14-9.
14-9. That was the Maurice Claret Natty team. 2003 was the 100th game. Michigan came back and won 35-21, right?
Correct.
That's 17 wins. That was Lloyd's last win against Ohio State. 2004, we already had the Big Ten wrapped up. Troy Smith ran all over us. I just remember that was an uninspiring effort. I don't remember the score.
34-20, 37-21.
Yeah, it was not a good game. 2005, we were pretty beat up. Hart was hurt. Henny was hurt. I think Henny tried to come back for that game, if I remember right, but was kind of a shell of himself. But it was still pretty close. Was it like 27-20 or something like that in Ohio State?
Ohio State had to score twice in the last 6 minutes to win that game, 25-21.
Okay, yeah. So Michigan really played hard despite being beat up there. 2006, of course, was the epic, one of the greatest games history of the series after Bo's death. And I want to say it was 38-34.
42-39.
42-39, so even more points than I remembered. 2007, sloppy game. That's the Beanie Wells game. That's Lloyd's last game. I don't think we scored an offensive touchdown in that game. I don't remember the score, though.
14-3.
Yeah, it was a pretty ugly one. 2008, I was on Quaaludes for that season to get through. All right, so I picked the wrong year to give up glue. I don't remember. I'm sure it was fugly. I don't remember what the score was.
42-7.
Yeah, that was some bad Michigan football right there. 2009 was not much better. Again, those 2 years, by and large, I was on antidepressants, so I don't remember them very well. You tell me.
37-7.
37-7. Oh boy. 2010. Again, I don't remember, man.
Even though Ohio State was much better, it was a decent game. It's 21-10. And Michigan lost a fumble like inside their own 3 that turned into an easy touchdown for Ohio State. It was actually a competitive game.
Those Rich Rod years, dude, we were holding hands and singing Josh Groban at the football bust. Literally, not even made up, not even a troll. Literally. I've tried to forget that ever happened. Okay. So we now go to Brady's first year in 2011. And I want to say we won it was a really high scoring game. And I want to say it was like 45-38, 38-31, something like that.
40-34.
So I was close. All right. So that puts us at 18 wins, right?
19.
Now it gets kind of easy again. 2012, we actually kind of surprised Ohio State by playing Denard and Devin at the same time and got off to a lead. But you guys came back, and I don't remember the score. You tell me. What was it?
26-21.
Yeah, so it was closer than I remember. That somebody for you guys got seriously hurt in that game, if I recall, right?
Yeah, somebody did.
Yeah, I forgot who that was. 2013 was a great game. Came down to the 2-point conversion at the end. Was that like 42-41 or something like that?
Bingo.
Okay. Devin played that game with a broken foot, by the way. 2014, only the second time in my life I rooted against Michigan because I thought it'd be better off if we lost. And I was right. And you guys named the score in that game. That's Brady's last game. You tell me what it was.
42-28.
Yeah, so we scored more points than I thought. Okay. 2015, we just you guys just were really pissed off that what happened the week before. I think JT Barrett and Ezekiel Elliott both ran for 100 yards in that game. All right. So it was a blowout. I don't remember the score. You tell me. That's Jimmy's first year.
42-13.
2016. That's a game that shall live in infamy. You know me, I'm not one to make excuses. I'm not one to blame the refs. That's the biggest absolute fraudulent outcome I've ever experienced as a fan in my life was that game. What went on in that game was just literally Operation Bucknut from Indianapolis. I've never been able to go back and watch it again. Not a second of it. I can't watch a replay. I can't look at a photo. The amount of anger I had coming out of that game, I can't relive it. I know we lost in double overtime, but I don't remember the score. I've had to that game. I have to let it go. Otherwise I'm going to hurt people, Mark.
And just to clarify, people are probably thinking you're just talking about the spot at the end of the game.
Oh, no, there was much more in that entire.
Yes. Sure.
We had 8 sacks in that game, and Ohio State somehow gets called for 0 holdings. Amaze balls. Congrats. I guess you guys just perfectly pass blocked all game long, except for the 8 times we had sacks. Okay. We just got lucky those 8 times. Every time else, man, everybody was just clean and mean. I got to stop. Let's just move on. All right. 2017. That was when we had the 14-0 lead, and then Josh Metellus dropped the interception, and we might have pulled that upset if that had not happened. And then I think Dwayne Haskins, the late Dwayne Haskins, I think came off the bench, right, for an injured
Yes.
JT Barrett.
Oh, yeah.
And led that comeback. I think John O'Corn just threw another pick, by the way. So I lost track of both O'Corn picks and the score. You tell me what it was.
I am losing track of this. Ohio State scored a late touchdown to make it more than a touchdown.
Yes. Yeah.
It was like, wasn't
I mean, the game was way closer, but you guys did score late to make it
31-20. 31-20. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah.
Urban's last game, 2018. One of the most emasculating losses until the next year that I can ever remember a Michigan team facing in my lifetime. Anyway, just had our manhood taken from us in that game. I know you guys 50 burgered us. I don't remember the score.
62-39.
60. So I thought 2019 was the 62-39. So that was what I was going to say for the next year. Wow. Okay. So then 2019 and the play, I don't remember the score of that game. I do remember we scored first on the opening drive. But there's a play in that game that just is the kind of stuff Michigan doesn't do. We had one of our team captains, Carlo Kemp, at the bottom of a pile, pulls a complete Sparty douche move and yanks off J.K. Dobbins' foot while twisting his leg. Okay. And I remember you and I talked about that at the time. That is not what we do here. They do that in East Landfill. They coach that in East Landfill. All right. Whether it's Saban, whether it's Perlis, whether it's, John L. Okay. That's what they do in East Landfill. We don't pull crap like that at the University of Michigan. That's not leaders and best. That's when James Earl Jones turns into Darth Vader and smites you, and you deserve it. And I mean, that was one of the cheap, most embarrassing moments as a Michigan fan I've ever had. And especially for a captain to do something like that, just absolutely demeaning to the rivalry, demeaning to the program. And then that's when you just kind of knew Ohio State was just beyond just better. They had just kind of mentally beaten us at that point. So I don't remember the score. 2020, we won that one. I'm counting that as a dub. Beautiful strategic Dunkirk level retreat and reset the entire program. That is the most brilliant strategic retreat that has been done in modern college football history. And I'm not even kidding. We play that game. We get hundied straight up. We get hundied. And Jimmy's toast. Okay. And the next 3 years never happens. All right. And that was the greatest 3-year run Michigan football has had since fielding Yost, man. So I'm giving us a win for 2020. All right. 2021 was 42-27 or 42-27, right?
Yes.
And that puts us at 20 wins.
Yes.
All right. 2022, one of my all-time favorite games in this series. First time we had won in your stadium in 20 years. That was the JJ game. You guys got a kind of a gift penalty or incomplete pass. Otherwise, we would have put 50 on you in that game. I think that was like 44-31 or something like that.
45-23.
45-23. So I gave you an extra touchdown. 2023, phenomenal game in the series. One of the all-time greats. Came down to the last possession. That's the Rod Moore game. I'm trying to remember the score of that one. Was it? I want to say we won by 6. Did we win by 6?
30-24.
30-24, because I thought you guys could have won the game with a touchdown and a PAT at the end if you had scored there. All right. And then last year's game, the 13-10 game in Columbus. So that puts us at what, 23 wins?
23 wins.
Okay.
So if I'm doing the math correctly, 1973 through 24 would be 52 games. They didn't play 1 year. That's 51 games. They tied twice. So that's 26, 23, and 2.
For Ohio State, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So pretty even.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very even.
What's different about the current era of the rivalry, we have what has not happened a lot, even though these are arguably the two greatest programs in the history of the sport. They're certainly among the two of the all-time top 5 programs in the history of the sport. But what's odd about this rivalry is the simultaneous excellence you are seeing here so far in the 2020s has actually not been the norm. The last time we actually had that was the early 70s, and Woody won went 2-0-1 in those games, and Michigan tied Ohio State for the Big Ten championship all 3 of those years, and never played even in a bowl game because of the old Big Ten postseason rules where only you went to the Rose Bowl. So what's been the history of this has not been the back and forth, it's actually been wild swings, and one program dominates the other and the other gets really pissed off and tired of taking it and makes some kind of landmark hire like Woody Hayes or Bo Schembechler or Jim Harbaugh and reverses or Urban Meyer and reverses the polarity of the rivalry. What we're seeing right now, where they won the last 2 national championships. I mean, they've dominated the last 2 NFL drafts. That we have not been seen a lot in the history of this rivalry.
And for Michigan to dominate the series while Ohio State has stayed elite, I don't know that has happened for 4 years.
Yeah, the only thing that comes close is what Lloyd did. But remember, a lot of those were disappointing seasons for Michigan, 3-4 loss seasons. And then this kind of what we saw last year, that kind of redeemed the whole year. Right. Okay.
Sure.
That again, which goes to speak to the dynamic that is kind of new. And I mean, just look at this last recruiting class. All right. They signed 2 of the top 3, or depending on ranking, they signed the top 2 quarterbacks in the last recruiting class, in the class of 25. So I don't think anybody's going anywhere anytime soon.
Got a couple questions here, Steve. Our buddy Jackson says, and finally, new rule. We'd love to see Deace on Real Time with Bill Maher or Club Random. Then let's see Mark on the Stephen A. Smith Show and Feinbaum.
I think this would be great. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
I'd do both. Now, man, last time if I was on with Club Random with Bill Maher, the last time I was around that much pot, I was a college student, so I'm not sure how that contact buzz.
Yeah, I saw Charlie Kirk try to endure that, and it just wasn't real pretty. He didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, Charlie and I discussed that after that appearance. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Let's just say that he did his best.
Was that on your show?
No, privately.
I must have missed that one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yakov, what's he got for us? He's got Steve is culturally more Clemson, Arkansas fan.
A lot of truth to that.
Okay.
I mean, I listen, culturally, I'm more Ohio State fan if we're going to make it parochial for sure. Which is why I never had a problem with I'm disappointed that all we did was steal your signs. It was about time. We should have done more ruthless things. I'm all for ruthlessness. I think, culturally, I'm much more aligned with, all we got to do to get Maurice Clarett is a car. Okay, let's go win. This is the only pursuit in America where compensating somebody for dangerous work, like where you could split your spine in any particular snap, is apparently intercollegiate football. And every other entity, when a grown man does dangerous work, compensating him and his family for his volunteering of his body is considered justified, if not required. All right. So I don't care about that kind of stuff, as long as you're not compromising I wouldn't even say that anymore. These schools have become so godless that I used to say, as long as you're not compromising the academic witness of the school or putting predators on campus, then like Michigan, you should be way more offended at Matt Weiss than you should be at Connor Stallions. And yet the amount of obsession with your fans on my X account over Connor Stallions blows my freaking mind. Okay. The amount of obsession that a guy went too far doing something to acquire information that it is not against any of the rules to acquire. Okay. You've got the wrong target. Just goes to show you guys you're a cult. The proper target is Matt Weiss. All right. How he somehow slipped through the vetting of both Harbaugh brothers. And you and I cover sports, have covered sports for a living. Other people understand the amount of security that goes in the NFL teams. How in the world he survived an NFL background check? Because remember, the feds say that Weiss has been doing this for like 9 years, which means he was doing this back when he was in the NFL too. So how in the world he slipped through the NFL vetting system and everything else? See, that's if you're an opposing fan and you hate the school, that stuff is what morally matters. Like, people were seriously hurt. Lives have seriously been stained and tainted. So there are going to be women who are going to be scarred for life because of what Matt Weiss did.
But that can't be construed to changing football games, football results.
Yes,
but anyway,
but
that's the motivation. I'm just telling you the motivation of the Ohio State fan.
Yes, but that shouldn't be your motivation.
No, it should not be,
because everybody's trying to change football results. Otherwise we want to all win. That's I don't understand that logic. Anyway, we're getting on a tangent, but anyway.
Steve, I don't know if you've seen what's been released by The Athletic in the last week. Of course, it's May, so it's that time to go through all sorts of historic lists and so forth. But they've ranked various writers, their top 25 coaches of the 21st century, their top 25 individual teams, top 25 programs. I was not able to find the list where you could see everyone at the same time, but how does number 11 strike you since 2000?
For coach or player?
This is what you see on the screen here is Michigan, number 11 among programs since 2000.
Well, first of all, did Stuart Mandel write this?
This was, yes, I believe from.
All right, then it instantly is wrong. Okay. I mean, Stuart Mandel and that absolute effeminate beta male at USA Today. All right. Dan, what's his nuts? Okay. You know what I'm talking about?
This is Stuart Mandel. I do not know who you're talking about otherwise.
Yeah, the guy at USA Today whose name escapes me, and Stuart Mandel. Listen, I mean, they are human abstinence programs. All right. Listen, if there are any wives in this audience and you've just gotten to the age you don't care about sex anymore, you want your husbands to leave you alone, send him a Stuart Mandel byline. All right. I mean, those guys, my goodness gracious. I mean, my voice cracks when I read their stuff silently in my head. Okay.
All right.
That all being said, I always, me, I don't argue about subjective stuff. Okay. Because that's a matter of opinion. I love to argue, but it's always about the objective stuff. In this case, I think 11th is okay. I mean, Michigan went through a period of time. I mean, Michigan had 3 consecutive seasons in the 2000s under Rich Rod, where it just was anywhere from terrible to irrelevant. It bottomed out again at the end of the Brady Hoke era. So, I mean, I would imagine the other 10 teams that are above them probably don't have the high lows, the low lows and the high highs that Michigan has both had in that period of time, which probably makes them a little difficult to rank, right?
Yeah.
But then again, my previous position, since it was written by Stuart Mandel, it is wrong. I'll just stick with that.
There's the list. So how do you feel about Ohio State with the consistency, Alabama with the national championships as a 1-2 battle there?
But I'm fine with that, and that's the 2 best coaches in the post Bear Bryant, Woody Bo era have been Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. That's reflected in that, so I'm okay with that.
Let's get to the coaches. They should be coming up right there. So Jimmy at 8 since 2000, if you can see that list.
Yeah, I read this before. I thought the list was actually pretty decent. I didn't see anything that was, a glaring, what you talking about, Willis, to me, again, with Jim, there were several years, frankly, of underperformance. His record on the road against ranked teams was well chronicled. And now poor James Franklin now is finally getting the coverage he's deserved for like 5 years. But because the media likes him more than Jim Harbaugh, he didn't get. So now he's getting it now, right? He's getting all the chyrons and the lower thirds, reminding everybody all the time his record on the road against ranked teams, But Jim did have that. That was not a good record. Could not beat Ohio State. I mean, Mark, neither you and I would have guessed when Jim was hired on December 30th, I think it was 2014. Neither one of us would have said, it's probably going to take this guy 7 years to beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten. Neither one of us would have guessed that at the time. And in fact, we would have, if there would not have been a prop bet in any sports book of what's more likely to happen in 7 years. All right. That's how long it takes Jim Harbaugh to beat Ohio State, or he's gone back to the NFL. They wouldn't have, the odds of that would have been so one-sided, they wouldn't even post that as a prop bet. Right. So I can see, why, both him and Michigan, it's a little difficult, to figure out where to place them, because you could have 2 wildly different, opinions based on, where they were prior and where they are right now.
You know, if I was going to say, Steve, there are the numbers, and that obviously is the core foundation of where we start with these lists, is you got to go through the championships and the numbers and the rankings and that sort of thing. But then there's a contextual portion of this. And then there's also just kind of an analysis of how truly good are these guys at what they do. There is one name to me that pops out as thinking that particular guy, I don't even know if he is a good football coach. And I don't know if you're going to identify the same name as I have, but there's one guy on here that I have little respect for as a football coach.
Probably not, because on my phone, it looks like the last line of the eye chart. Okay.
Okay. Les Miles. I highly question his ability to coach a football team or coach a football game, let's say more accurately. At number 17.
Les Miles took a dead Oklahoma State program and resurrected them.
He did.
And he was beating Oklahoma and Bob Stoops when Stoops was at his zenith is when he was beating them and making Oklahoma State competitive again. Won 2 national championships, right, at LSU, or just the one in 07? Just the one. Okay. Yeah. But that's, one more than a lot of other people have. So I agree his methodologies were unorthodox, to say the least. Okay. And then, the scandal that occurred with him in retirement and some of the stories that came out, I can see that tainting his resume as well. But I mean, the guy did resurrect a moribund program. And at the time that his more renowned in-state rival was operating at full capacity, and then won a national championship at LSU. So I think he's got to be somewhere on that list.
All right, Steve, the current Michigan team, and certainly let me respect your time. So just let me know when you need to take off. It seems as though, based on our discussions, that you're high on this Michigan team for 2 basic reasons. They have established and built a defensive structure that they are just now recruiting and developing players and plugging them in. So that defense is going to be rock solid, number one. Number two, you love Bryce Underwood.
Pretty much. Now, let's take the back to front and start with Bryce. I think it's entirely possible, week 2 under the lights in front of 90,000 in Norman, Oklahoma, that he goes down there and gets strip sacked and throws 2 picks and we lose like 27-13. I think that's entirely possible. Okay. But, unless you're a Sparty Bucknut cultist who only looks at counting stats, which means you're the guy the sports books love and you're funding all of their palaces. So muy bien. Okay. If you watched the actual game and broke down the film, I actually thought his film was very impressive. And I sent you that breakdown. You and I discussed it on Michigan podcast. You had a lot of the same conclusions that I did, because you have to look at him as a mold of clay. Okay. And so how high of quality, this is the Bryce Underwood that we're going to see this year, even at the end of the year, is nothing compared to the Bryce Underwood we're probably going to see a year from now, and certainly not 2 years from now. Okay. But what is the mold of clay we have to work with right now? And what you can see is that the stuff he has to work on is actually not the stuff that is typical of freshmen. He doesn't look rushed. He doesn't look hurried. He locked on his receiver the very first pass, almost got it picked off, and kind of learned from that. Even his incompletions are in places that's where you want the throw to be. I think he will be limited because Michigan is undergoing kind of an overhaul with the skill position talents, particularly at receiver this year. And they're still trying to build the offensive line back up from where it was the last few years under Jimmy. But it's not possible it's really not possible for Michigan to have worse quarterback play than it did last year. It's just not. I mean, Michigan was playing with 10 guys on offense, and the guy who was missing was the most important player on the field. Michigan did not have a playable quarterback last year. It did not. Nobody whatsoever that belonged as a starting quarterback at any of the 18 Big Ten schools, and probably no power conference school within any of the 9 realms within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Mark. So Michigan played with MAC level quarterback. So number one, it can't get worse. So there's going to be improvement, especially factoring in the schedule is way easier than it was a year ago. Right. So the schedule is not as daunting. It can't get any worse. So you're starting with, there's going to be improvement. So so that's your baseline. What's the ceiling of that improvement? Well, the ceiling of the improvement of the offense is not the same as Bryce Underwood's ceiling in his first year. His ceiling in his first year will be limited because it is his first year. Okay. But his ceiling is way higher than anybody in his first year, is way higher than anybody they had a quarterback last year. All right. I mean, I would argue Mikey Keene, if he is able to play this year, just based on his own numbers, which aren't great, but you're talking about a guy that's taken 6,000 snaps in college football and has like a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio in 4 years. That's way better than anybody Michigan had last year. Okay. So there's going to be marked improvement there. And then on defense, I just think there is an internal structure. Michigan has been anywhere from very good to dominant on defense, really going all the way back since Jimmy came in. I mean, that was true. I forgot the defensive coordinator's name, who's, in the SEC now. Don Brown had very good defenses. Don Brown had top 5, 15, power rated defenses every year. He just got lit up by Ryan Day twice. So everybody just remembers that. Okay. I mean, Michigan has not been underwhelming on defense for well over a decade. I think this year's defense will be better. Number one, the schedule again is easier. All right. We're not playing, quarterbacks that have 4 years in major college football and have like we did last year at Texas and Oregon, and they were playing with a great amount of talent around them, or Will Howard. So that's 3. All right. We don't have any quarterback like that on our schedule at all. I mean, I could argue the best quarterback on our schedule is John Mateer, who's going to be playing his second game in a power conference when we play him. All right. So we don't face any quarterbacks like that, who are basically, NFL draft picks just with another year of eligibility. And then I just think the depth will be better. I think there's 6 or 7 legit 6 or 7 deep. There's no Masons there, and there's no Kennys there, but there are 6 very high level players that are basically all the same guy. I think there's 6 or 7 deep at linebacker too. And I think the level of depth, especially over the course of how long the season can be now, I think we'll be better on defense because the schedule is lighter and our depth is better.
And the analysis of the quarterback play or lack thereof last year is one of the reasons why, for one of the very few times in the last 90 seconds of that USC game, in a 1-score college football game with talent like that on both sides, did I think this game's over? Mm-hmm. Because I just thought all USC needs to do is tackle running backs.
Yeah.
And obviously they didn't do it.
I mean, if you go back and watch the USC game, the play before our tailback breaks off that long run to win the game for us, the play before, USC just let Samaj Morgan literally run down the middle of the field, no one within 20 yards of him in a complete circular radius. And all we need is a quarterback that sees that and lobs the ball to him, and he just walks into the end zone. We could not function as a basic offense last year. I mean, the throw, that the play call, everybody got on Kirk Campbell for the play call, that play action pass on 3rd and 1, I think it was, on year 1 year. That was a great play call, perfectly conceived play. All you need to do is just throw a pass most high school guys can play, where you layer the ball over Jack Sawyer's head into a wide open touchdown. And if that happens, Kirk Campbell might still be the OC here, frankly. Okay. I mean, that was one of the worst throws I've seen any Michigan quarterback not named Nick Sheridan ever make. It was awful.
It was awful. And even after the big Khalil Mullings run, it was funny because they were at about the 20-yard line, and it was a struggle to get the ball past the goal line. We had to get
to 4th down, if I remember right? Didn't we have to get 4th down to run that in?
Yes.
They're not going to be that bad again. The schedule's not going to be that hard. Okay. So now let me say this with a caveat. All right. What's going on right now between the NCAA and Sharon's lawyers is a negotiation. Okay. If this thing becomes like a 4-game suspension, then I think that's probably worth another L for Michigan and gets them in that 9-3 range, where they're probably not a playoff team this year. All right. So that's the caveat, but we don't know that yet. That'll be determined here in the next couple of months. But in terms of the structure of the team, the quarterback play will be way better than it was last year. And that's with Bryce Underwood probably in year 1 being just a guy. We didn't have a guy, Mark, last year. We played with 10 men on offense. We didn't have a guy. So having a jag is like a massive upgrade. Okay. All right. So the schedule is lighter. We'll have at least a jag at quarterback. yeah, I think we're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, we've got a Nebraska contingent that gets offended because of the games that were chosen to suspend Sharon Moore. But those are the two right games that they selected. It just makes sense that you select those two games because you got to select early season games. You got to select back-to-back games.
Yep.
And so that's the logical choice for me.
But if I don't have a problem with Nebraska fan getting upset. I'd use that for motivation for my team too. You want to listen, though. I will say this about Matt Rule. I really thought he was a tough guy when he came into our league. If you're looking for the most effeminate answer at a press conference every week, look no further than Lincoln, Nebraska. He'll give it to you. Okay. I mean, that guy, that bleeping guy. Okay. Ryan Walters called and said, "Stop whining." Okay. I mean, that guy is wow. Okay.
Yes. He doesn't want to play anybody outside the conference. He wants a playoff expanded so his
he
7 and 5
thought
teams can
Connor
make it.
Stallions was worth 40 points when we played them a few years ago. I mean, that guy's like the David Frenches of Stuart Mandel's.
Minnie, you're just in time to hear Matt Rule get slammed there in the chat. Okay. Of course, the SEC is meeting this week, and we're hearing all sorts of barbs from Greg Sankey. So let's start off with this. Before we get to reality, if you are the commissioner of college football, what is a playoff system? What is the most effective playoff system that you could devise? The format, the seedings, the number of teams that get into the playoff.
First of all, I hate the committee. It's an invitational, not a playoff. I don't like it at all.
Me too.
I just don't like it at all. I don't like the invitational aspect at all. So I'm actually in favor of the automatic bids. Maybe I would not do 4 for both the Big Ten. I could negotiate that, but because I like the undercard of championship weekend, making that more interesting too, where teams in those leagues are playing each other. I love that idea. Okay, I think that's really clever. So I'd be fine negotiating on what the amount and the distribution of the AQ bids are, because even if you give the Big Ten and SEC just 3, you're still playing the 2 undercard games. You see, you're still having to play those, sure, right? So, I'm okay, with automatic bids are to me preferable to a committee. But I think the bigger problem the sport has nothing to do with the structure of the playoff. The bigger, everybody says that, why don't and this will probably be the last thing I got time to answer is they know what the answers are. They know what they have to do. They don't want to do them. All right. The courts will no longer grant them the previous Supreme Court precedent that essentially gave them an antitrust exemption without having an official one. The courts took that away in that 9-0 ruling that launched NIL 3 years ago or 4 years ago. All right. And so they're in a position now where that's why they're going to the other 2 branches of government to try to get them to essentially enact an antitrust exemption, because that's the only thing that allows them to limit the compensation of their labor without granting that labor any form of agency, giving them an employee contract, negotiating with them for salary, letting them collect a bargain. And then on the other hand, though, for those of you that are saying they're not being fair to the players, the reality is this current arrangement for the players, they're making more per capita now with more freedom than a lot of pro athletes are, except for like the very greatest player. They actually have a better deal right now than if they were unionized. And it's not even close. There's no limiting principle on their salary at all. I'm going to tell you right now, this Deloitte clearinghouse, Mark, it's going to get thrown out in court, but with it by the end of the year would be my guess. Because a federal court is going to say you cannot limit the compensation of your labor that you don't grant any agency to. You cannot do this. All right. Now, my theory is that's exactly what they want. All right. I think that they are attempting to Cloward Piven the sport so that the stench of the fan outcry of how ridiculous all this is. Who's this guy on your basketball team that Michi, right? He left Ohio State, went to South Carolina, went back to Ohio State, went to South Carolina. He's back at Ohio State again. All right. I think they want that to happen. I really do. I think they want the hue and cry of the fans to get so overwhelming that it finally moves Congress to give them the antitrust exemption that Congress has not been willing or able to grant. All right. So what you're seeing right now in college sports is this is the hunt for Red October. The hardest part about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch. All right. And so both sides are out in the middle of the Atlantic right now. All right. And the Bering Sea, I should say, if we're going to use that movie. All right. And so the NCAA and the athletic administrations, They want maximum carnage and chaos because there's a window right now that if the stench gets so high, they can get Congress to act to save them. But if Congress does not act in the next couple of years, the amount of L's that they're going to take moving forward now are so systemic that there will be a system that will be forced into place by the courts that will require them to deal with players as employees. And so that is the game of chicken that is taking place right now. And I think it's going to take another year or two at least to iron this all out. For those of you in this audience who think the House settlement is the settlement that's going to decide this, not by a long shot. And I think the House settlement is a little bit like Obamacare. You can have all the other provisions, but if there's no mandate, the whole thing falls apart. Okay. If you can have, this is similar. You can have all the other provisions, but if you can't limit the NIL deals that the boosters can give the players, it's irrelevant. And that's exactly what's going to get stripped away by the courts. They're going to take that away. And they're going to say you cannot, the Supreme Court made it clear, 9-0. You cannot limit the compensation of labor, all right, without granting them agency. They have to agree to an employee deal or sign a contract or be collective bargained. You can't just unilaterally take it away. So I think the House settlement will likely help form the structure of much of what will eventually happen in the next few years. But this stuff isn't over by a long shot. So buckle up.
Steve Deace, Michigan Podcast. Steve, so much appreciate your time. Great to see you, and have a great summer. Hopefully we can have you back soon.
You bet, guys. Go Blue. Thank you, Mark. Take care, brother.
Thanks, man. There it is, Steve Deace, Michigan Podcast. We appreciate every time Steve can stop by, break down Michigan football and beyond. There's a lot that we could continue to go on and on with there. I had a lot more questions for Steve and some comments of my own, but the comments can hold, and a lot of people sometimes will make comments when I have Steve on, because him more than anybody else, I just let roll. I just let him go. I only get him so often. And unless I have something that I definitely disagree with him on, that I will challenge him on. Otherwise, I want to get as much out of him as possible, squeeze him dry, and get as much intel and perspective from Steve. So we heard the historic perspective on Michigan football and the rivalry with Ohio State. And then we certainly hit on the 2025 team and why he likes Michigan with a much better quarterback situation and the defense being what it is. And then we went with the NCAA situation and the college football playoff. I am certainly overwhelmed at this point in a good way with so many content ideas that I may or may not run with concerning college football playoff and a lot of the rhetoric coming out of Destin, Florida and the SEC this week. Heard some ridiculous comments coming from the likes of Greg Sankey, Brian Kelly of LSU, Eli Drinkwitz, and I only heard a few of the coaches. So there were probably more to choose from past those gentlemen. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. This is a Thursday, which means we'll be back on Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time with more of the College Football Show. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. I am doing my darndest to get out there and grab the best available talent to come on here as guests. We've seen in recent days Steve Deace, Peter Burns of the SEC Network. Next week, Brian Driscoll of Irish Breakdown, and a whole slew of others. Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. And if you have any suggestions, certainly we will go after them, because I want to stock this show with great phone calls from you. One big topic typically that I deliver, unless we've got too many guests, but then also obviously the news of the day and the great guests that we provide right here at the Voice of College Football. We'll see you on Friday. While I check out the chat, thank you for that, Doreen. Great to see you here. Yeah, Chuck on Bucks, that was a fun show we recorded yesterday. I believe he posted that this morning. And we went through college football history. We talked about the current playoff situation, and he just hit me with all sorts of great topics. And that was a fun discussion. That's the first time I've talked with Chuck, and we're going to have him on here in the next few weeks. We also have Zach Smith lined up for next week here. I believe that's on Tuesday. Chris Drew's a regular guest, and we're going to continue to crank with the regulars and then add to it. So expect this. I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but expect us to be cranking every day, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, with some of the great analysis and perspective across college football. So you don't just need to hear from me every day. We will bring some others on to provide their perspective. Appreciate you being here. Again, Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. See you then. I am up for sainthood. I would love to know what that's all about. Sainthood is obviously not a high bar these days. Great stuff. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here.